Hey friends, welcome back to Summer Adventure Camp. I'm your host Brock Eastman, and today we've got a special treat. You might remember that last week we learned about making songs, and you saw me playing some instruments and my rhythm was pretty good. But then Mike and Larry the Cucumber came on, and whoa, that was pretty amazing. Oh, a little bit better quality music, a little bit better voice, all those things. But that didn't scare me away. See, I've been watching as Sarah Jean and Lauren have been teaching us about art, and I thought, well, this week Mike is going to talk to us about animating Larry the Cucumber. So why not see if I can step it up and make my own Bob and Larry, right? So I've got a little red piece of paper here, drawing my very own Bob, circle, and I'm drawing my very own Larry the Cucumber. Kind of like banana, but green? Well, we'll see what Mike comes up with, and we'll see what I come up with. But at the end, I'll see you then.
Okay, we are back. Welcome back, everybody, to How to Make a Silly Song Part 2. In Part 1, we kind of went a little bit through kind of just the very general creation process of coming up with a new idea. Didn't make it more complicated than just try to find some things that are interesting to you that you can combine together to make something new. In this case, it was the idea of a birthday, Larry loving his tooth, and then wanting his tooth to have some company because he felt sorry for being alone. So all of those things are things that people can identify with. And if you can put those together in a song in a fun way with an interesting character, it can be pretty entertaining. So, and that's the key when you're trying to create something for an audience, is just giving them something to relate to, an emotion that they're familiar with, that they can grab onto and identify with the character. Everybody knows what it's like to have a birthday. Everybody knows what it's like to have a tooth, and everybody knows what it's like to feel lonely. So all those things can combine together to make a kind of an interesting story that you can tell. So that's the general idea, and then we moved ahead toward an idea for a lyric for that, and then once that lyric, that little nugget got in my mind, then I just sketched out a whole story in a screenplay. I showed you what a screenplay was, kind of the main parts of the screenplay, the scene headings, the action, the character, and the dialogue. So where it is, what you're seeing, who's talking, and what they're saying. So those are all the key components of a screenplay. So wrote that all out, then worked with my good buddy Kurt Heineke to work the music out into actual music. I'm not a musician, and that's another thing, another important aspect of the creative process. It's very rare that you work completely by yourself creatively. Most people, even if they're writers, they're working with editors. My friends at Tyndale, as I'm writing the Dead Sea Squirrels books, here's my Dead Sea Squirrels books. I write them by myself, but I also pass ideas off to my friends, to the folks my good friends at Tyndale. What do you think about this idea? Wouldn't that be great? Here's my outline for the story. Do you have any thoughts on that? When I get the story written, I send it in to Sarah Rubio, who's my editor, and she corrects all my mistakes and says, hey, did you think about this? This might be interesting. So it's all very collaborative. And so whenever you're creating something, it's so good to work with other talented people to create really, really cool, new, interesting things. And animation is no different. There's so many people that speak into that, and you're not talented. You won't be talented at everything. You'll be talented at some things. And if you work with other people who are talented at other things, everybody can get together and create something that's really, really cool. And that's one of the things that I love the most about animation. So, coming up with the ideas, and then bringing those song ideas to a guy like my friend Kurt, who could then create an actual song, and then from there we go down the process. So we left with the song creation, and then we showed a little bit of the concept art of what it could start to look like. So now what I'm going to get into now is the animation process itself and how that works. So after all those elements are completed, we go into what's called the storyboarding phase. And so what the storyboard artist will do is he or she will look at the script on one side of their desk, and then on the other side of their desk is the concept art, that I showed you, what the characters are going to look like, what some of the props in the script that the script describes are going to look like. And they'll start drawing what are called storyboards, and those are just representations, just images, almost like a comic book. If you've seen a comic book before, storyboards look very much like a comic book, where you're starting to lay out what that story is going to look like visually. What characters are in the scene? What are the characters doing in the scene? How many characters are there? What are they dressed like? All of that. So it starts to give you information about what's happening and how the story is gonna roll out. And storyboard artists are highly trained in first of all drawing, but also composition, how camera works, how characters work in the blocking and in camera. So there's a lot that goes into it. And a good storyboard artist is really, really valuable in really communicating the script to the screen. And so storyboard artists will go through and storyboard, drawing out the shots of what's described in the script. And then what we'll also do is we'll go in and we'll record an initial version of the song. So I remember I sang that for you. So I would go into the booth and I would do the same thing. I would sing, "I remember the day you came my way. I was so young. My chewing days had not begun." I'd record the whole song in the booth. I actually on a microphone much like this. This is very similar to the microphone that I used to record my Larry voice on. This is a cheaper version of that microphone in some of the big studios that I've gone to. And we'll record it to the music, and then we'll marry those storyboards to the music in what's called a story reel or an animatic. And that becomes the blueprint for what will then become the animation. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen with you again and show you the first chunk of the animatic or the story reel for this. And there you'll see the storyboards right next to each other that are cut on top of the music, and you'll kind of see how this is starting to play out. So let me share this screen with you.
And now it's time for Silly Songs with Larry, the part of the show where Larry comes out and sings a silly song.
I remember the day you came my way. I was so young, my chewing days had not begun. Then I saw you protrude. I put away my baby food. When you peeked out at me, I knew it was meant to be. My only tooth, my lonely tooth, my all by itself in the middle of my mouth tooth. Happy tooth day to you. Happy tooth day to you. Happy tooth day to you. Happy tooth day, happy tooth day. Happy tooth day to you.
So happy.
You grew up so fast, and as time passed, I thought there'd be more, 2, 3, or maybe 4. But there you stood so white, nobody's to your left or right, and I knew that I was done. You'd be my only one. My lonely tooth, my only tooth, my all by itself in the middle of my mouth tooth.
Okay, so yeah, you can see it's really rough, and each of these, as you notice, they're edited together, so it looks like there's a little bit of movement, but these are all individual boards. So there's a drawing of Larry sleeping, and there's another drawing of him waking up and yawning, and then another drawing of him jumping out of bed. The bed slides away, his friends slide in. We cut to Larry close up singing, and then we cut to a shower curtain coming over him. We see him changing clothes. He changes out of his pajamas into his regular clothes. So all of these are individual drawings that a storyboard artist draw that later are going to be replicated in animation. And the only difference between a story reel and animation is, animation, you're seeing 24 frames every second. So you have 24 individual frames every second. So it looks like the character is moving in real life. And that's a little bit more complicated. I can explain that maybe at another time. But this is the story reel phase where you just have these individual drawings. They're you edit them together to the musical track that we recorded, and you start to see how the story is shaping up. So, and this is a process, and I'll skim through this whole thing. So there's a lot of boards. There's hundreds of boards in here that shape this. But by the time you get done with this, you know what your song is going to look like. There's the Tooth Buddies. And so you know what your song is going to look like, and you have a great idea of what's going to be in every shot. And your animation is really starting to take shape at that point.
Every day, millions of children around the world drink water that makes them sick. It's a big problem. So big, you can drown in it. Let's make it smaller. Instead of the whole ocean, let's look at one drop. One little boy. Meet Rohit. He lives in a small village in India, and he is thirsty.
Where do you get your water from? Most of the time, we get our water from the well. But it tastes funny. The water we get at the river doesn't taste as bad. But it makes my skin itch. My sister and I have to make many trips to get the water we need. Sometimes I wonder if the water is what makes me feel sick. Maybe it is why my stomach hurts. Today, I went to the Compassion Center. I have a lot of friends and I learn about taking care of myself. The people there tell me there is a plan for my life. I think they're right. Today, my dad came with me. They showed us the water that we drink and bathe in. Water that is brown and dirty. Water that tastes bad and makes my skin itchy. They took that water and poured it into a bucket. And out came water that was clear. This was not water that would make me sick. Before, I only had safe water at the church. But now, we all got our own buckets to bring home. My little sister helped to pour in the water we carried home that morning. We can use that water to drink and to brush our teeth. I can wash my hands in it. I know that this is not water that will make me sick. This water is different.
When you give Compassion's Water of Life, you give a lifetime of safe water to a child in poverty. For $79, you give health, life, and hope.
Okay, so that's called the storyboarding and story reel phase, and that's going to be the same in every type of animation. There's two main types of animation. Well, there's three. The first type is traditional animation, where it's drawn frame by hand. And if you've seen old Disney movies like the Snow White and Cinderella and even Lion King and Beauty and the Beast. Those are all traditionally animated by hand. There's computer animation, which is what VeggieTales is, which is you creating your characters inside of a computer and virtually, and you're animating those in the computer. That's Toy Story, that's VeggieTales, that's Kung Fu Panda, that's computer animation. And then the third type is stop motion or claymation, where you're actually posing characters for an actual camera frame by frame, and which is a really cool technique. If you've seen James and the Giant Peach or Coraline or movies like that, those are all stop motion animation. So getting back to storyboards and story reels, if you're doing if you're doing computer animation, or you're doing traditional animation, or even claymation or stop motion, the storyboarding phase looks the same in all of those. You're just developing your story, how fast it's going to be paced, what's going to be in every shot, and then you'll start to put together in production after that, the different steps. And when it comes to computer animation, the next step after the storyboarding, story reel phase is layout. And layout is one step after storyboards and one step before animation. So what that means is you're going to put your character, your Larry the Cucumber, who's not animated yet. It'll just be like a Larry doll. You're sticking him in the scene and moving him around. You're laying him out where he's going to be. It's called blocking, where he's going to be in the scene and when. And it's actually, and it's not going to look even as good as the storyboards, because the storyboards, the characters are posed, they have life, they have expression. In the layout phase, they're just going to be kind of dead zombies, moving around. But it's important information to have, because the animators will then take those files and then begin to breathe life and animate those characters, to bring them to life. So what I'll do now is I will play the story. Let's see. This is going to be the layout reel of, let's see. Yeah, here we go. This will be the layout reel of Happy Tooth Day, and you'll see what I mean. So let me share this screen here. Desktop 2, share. Okay. So I'm going to share this screen here. This is our layout reel, and we've gone from storyboards now to layout.
And now it's time for Silly Songs with Larry, the part of the show where Larry comes out and sings a silly song.
I remember the day you came my way. I was so young, my chewing days had not begun. Then I saw you protrude. I put away my baby food. When you peeked out at me, I knew it was meant to be. It was meant to be. My only tooth, my lonely tooth, my all by itself in the middle of my mouth tooth. Happy Tooth Day to you. Wow. Happy Tooth Day to you. Happy Tooth Day to you. Happy Tooth Day. Happy Tooth Day. Happy Tuesday to you. Happy, so happy.
So you see here, the characters are not animated. They look like zombies. They're just all wide-eyed. They're stiff. They're moving around. So you're not even seeing as much expression as you did in the storyboards. But this is, like I said, this is important information, because the animators will then take these scene files and start to animate them. Actually, here, let me go ahead and show you, just in case my story reel was not on shared screen. These are the same thing in storyboard. So you see here that the characters have nice big smiles, and everybody's moving around, and you can kind of tell there's more life in it, which will then be put back in when you're in animation phase. So and actually what I'll do now is, rather than stop sharing the screen, I'll just continue sharing the screen, and I will go right to the animation phase. So this is the animated story reel, and this is still not all the way done yet. This still has rough music. The animation is done, so the characters are coming to life, but they don't have their final textures or lighting, so it's not as pretty as it's going to be in the end. So I'll go ahead and play this. This is the animation reel right after layout phase.
Part of the show where Larry comes out and sings a silly song.
I remember the day you came my way. I was so young, my chewing days had not begun. Then I saw you protrude. Oh, there you are. I put away my baby food. When you peeked out at me, I knew it was meant to be. It was meant to be. My only tooth, my lonely tooth, my all by itself in the middle of my mouth tooth. Happy tooth day to you. Wow. Happy tooth day to you. Happy tooth day to you. Happy tooth day. Happy tooth day. Happy tooth day to you. Happy, so happy.
All right, so I'm going to stop my share here for a second and go back to our screen. So that is animation phase. So you can see the characters have life, they're smiling, they're moving around, but they don't look all that interesting yet. They're still real flat lighted, everything is kind of jaggy. So they're missing what are called their textures on their skin and on their clothes, and you're not seeing all the textures that will occupy the background. And the other important thing especially about computer animation is lighting. So people will get in there and computer lighters will get in and actually light the sets. And so they'll look beautiful, just like if you're lighting a live action set. You can do that virtually inside a computer. So, texturing gets put on, lighting gets put on, and then these characters really come to life. And then on top of that, we go in and we record the final singing and the final music and dialogue and vocals. And live instruments and everything, and put it all together and mix it so it sounds great and it looks great, and everything comes together in the final animation. So I'm going to play that for you now. I'm going to play the whole thing from start to finish, and then we'll come back on for a little bit and have some closing words. So let me share my screen one more time.
And now it's time for Silly Songs with Larry, the part of the show where Larry comes out and sings a silly song.
I remember the day you came my way. I was so young, my chewing days had not begun. Then I saw you protrude. Oh, there you are. I put away my baby food. When you peeked out at me, I knew it was meant to be. It was meant to be. My only tooth, my lonely tooth, my all by itself in the middle of my mouth tooth. Happy tooth day to you. Wow. Happy tooth day to you. Happy, happy, happy tooth day to you. Happy, happy, happy tooth day. Happy tooth day. Happy tooth day to you. Happy, so happy, happy, so happy, happy, so happy. Yeah. You grew up so fast, and as time passed, I thought there'd be more. 2, 3, or maybe 4. But there you stood so white. Nobody's to your left or right. And I knew I was done. You'd be my only one. My only tooth, my lonely tooth, my all by itself in the middle of my mouth tooth. Happy tooth day to you. I got you a present. Since you've been all by yourself, I got you some buddies. Some tooth buddies. Happy tooth day to you. Happy, happy, happy tooth day to you. Happy, happy, happy tooth day. Happy tooth day. Happy tooth day to you. So happy, happy. What's up? A little crowded? Well, just give him a chance. Think of all the smiles and memories you can share with your gentle siblings. No more chewing all alone, no more greeting all alone.
Hey, Larry, can I borrow some...
I'm not saying when I brush across you. I'm not saying how much more I can chew. No more shining all alone, no more shining all alone. Oops. My only tooth, my lonely tooth, my all by itself in the middle of my mouth tooth.
That's okay, Larry. We all got you too.
Tooth Buddies.
Happy Tooth Day! Happy Tooth Day to you!
Tune in next time to hear Bob say, Happy Tooth Day, Larry.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. That was Happy Tooth Day. And just from start to finish, from idea to finished silly song. And pretty much everything that we've done with VeggieTales, that's the process. You go through, concept, initial idea, you go to script, you go to music, you go to storyboards, you go to story reel, you go to layout, you go to animation, then you go to final and final music. So I hope you all enjoyed that. And it's been a fun time hanging out with you all. And I just want to remind everybody, as I put on my Larry mask again, to wear your mask, stay safe, but
always remember, God made you special, and He loves you very much. Goodbye!
Hey Larry, where are you?
I'm right here, Bob. Hey, how's it going? Are you guys ready to have a great day at Summer Adventure Camp? I'm host Larry and I'm host Bob and Summer is host Brock.
Hey! Okay. What did you guys think? I know you just came back from an awesome lesson with Mike on creating Larry the Cucumber and silly songs and animation. But what did you think? Was that pretty good animation? Almost believable? I might have to work on it a little longer, but what I hope is that you guys learn that you can do amazingly creative things and in all sorts of ways, whether it be art, with your voice, or even music. So keep it up and we'll see you again later.